I'm on my way to Poland. I've never been here before. I've been invited to come to Warsaw to a special concert of some of my favourite pieces of music. It's irresistible. There's one in particular, Bach's Magnificat. This is my friend Richard Berkeley Dennis. He's the one who's invited me here. Although I know he's half Polish, I've never thought of Richard as anything other than totally English. Very funny and very eccentric. In London I've known him as a singer, a countertenor in fact, also as an actor and a music teacher. But he's been here some time now, so I rather feel that Poland has somehow claimed him. I know Richard's a survivor, but it's a very brave step to go to a foreign land where you don't even speak the language and try to make a life for yourself. Why did he come? And why has he stayed? That's what I want to know. My God, he's got a dog. Finally!
So where's the dog?
Half of the Carlsberg Beer Company is looking for her. She ran through these railings into this car park, and some girls came down to sort of have a smoke, and now they're trying to find her.
What's her name?
Dottie.
Oh, that's good. Okay,
yes.
Well then,
Let's go.
let's go. Do you know what? It's really cold. It's -1.
I know. Well, I can tell you, you'd be even colder if you'd spent the last hour and a half trying to trace a bloody little dog that comes up to you and you say, Dottie, 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 and then she goes, and rushes off. But, I mean, she's a small dog, she's a proper dog. You know, they say homosexuals have small dogs, but that's sort of Yorkshire Terriers and things, not Schnauzers. Because it's a Polish car, because I'm foreign, I have to have a special number plate with a Y on the end to show that I'm foreign.
Why are you here?
Why are you here? Yeah.
Well, it's cold and it's dark.
What is the book?
And the whole place looks like a building site. And even though I haven't seen him for several years, it's still the same old Richard.
He's not a member.
I can't wait to meet the dog.
I'll give him all the details before I go to bed tonight, actually. There she is. There's the bloody little dog.
Look at this.
You sit, I'm not touching you.
Dottie, where have you been?
We gave her cookies.
You gave her cookies? Dottie, sit. Dottie, down.
Yeah.
Dottie, down. Down.
Good Dottie. She's a bit of a naughty Dottie.
Nice.
She's not really nice.
She's now.
She's like my mother. Very, very self-centered and tricky.
Okay, guys. So
Well, thank you.
good luck. You're welcome.
Happy Christmas.
Happy
You too.
Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lack of parking space.
Oh, bollards. Which house is yours?
I'm here, number 42.
Okay.
Good. All right, let's go in. Now, when you come in here, you'll be a bit shocked because this hasn't been done up since the war. And it's fairly typical of the insides of most Warsaw blocks.
Show me the way, Dottie.
Come on, Dot. Dottie Bobos. God, you're a disgrace. Bobos, don't talk to me like that. Would you like a cup of tea? I expect you would.
Love a cup of tea. Oh my gosh, it's a shrine.
It's my Christmas tree.
Richard, you brought all the old furniture from London. It's just like home.
There you are. Hello, welcome here.
This morning there's a really important rehearsal. But Dottie's up to her old tricks again.
Dottie, not eating photos. Look what you've done to that one. That's Richard you've chewed. Go on, slink off. Slink off. You're in the doghouse.
When Richard decides to do something, he will move heaven and earth to make it happen. So when he decided to stay in Poland, he set about working with young musicians. And he soon saw there was a need for a new young orchestra. So he simply helped set one up. He's now co-founder and chairman of the New Chamber Orchestra Foundation. I'd thought this concert was going to be in a church hall or something. But now I find it's actually taking place in the Polish radio studio, in front of an audience of 500 people. And Richard's got a guest star. Emma Kirkby is one of the top sopranos in the world, and she's a dame. Emma's voice has a beautiful clarity, ideal for Renaissance and Baroque repertoire. So it's a great coup to have got her to sing in Poland with his Polish orchestra.
I must go and get Dame Emma. Are we off?
Okay, sure.
Hello, Emma.
Oh, she's dangerous, isn't she?
She's not really.
Yes, she is.
She's got a bite, but I mean, she's all right.
I've got a headache.
Oh no.
Well, it's just cold. I've got an aspirin here.
Oh, we can go get some.
This concert is a big deal for the conductor, Pavel Kosnovitsky. Poor Pavel, he doesn't know about Emma's cold yet.
Emma, do you have a regime for when you're going to rehearse or going to perform? You know, take a rest an hour before, only drink this, only do that?
A certain amount, yes. Having a cold is very confusing. It confuses everything. You don't quite know what you can and can't do. Yeah, I mean, normally I just get on with it and hope it's going to work. But if it tickles too much tonight, I might stop.
Hi, Pavel.
Hello.
How are you doing? Red
I'm very well.
today. Red means
Very good.
danger.
Very good. Now cantata.
Okay.
Proszę. Państwa, lecimy w góry. Dobrze? Pierwszy i ostatni.
Emma's obviously suffering with this cold. I do hope it doesn't affect her performance in the concert.
Here we are, day start.
Oh, good. Oh, happier?
Very grand.
Emma, how did you first meet Richard?
This oddball person said, come and sing in Warsaw. I said, okay. And then I discovered that he was the mover and shaker for a rather amazing musical setup, really.
And had you ever been to Warsaw before?
Yes, yeah, but not really to work with Polish musicians. I'd come and done odd performances in the concert halls, just with my own colleagues from home. The times I've been to Poland, I've always been really impressed how deep their love of music is, actually. And I really got the sense that these people, I've had it every time I've sung in Warsaw, actually, right from early days, that there's a sense in which people here, they were eating the music. I mean, they were nourishing themselves on the music, because other things were not going so well, but the music was a huge solace and a food for them.
She wants a thermos flask.
Where are you going to get one of those?
Taki.
Lovely,
No,
lovely,
I
lovely.
said ask.
Oh, that's
You
perfect, no?
receive.
There's another rehearsal this evening, but we're taking time out to go to a cafe. Richard wants me to meet a friend of his. Richard, who's Angers?
The reason I'm in Warsaw, because I met him in London, in the street, and showed him around London, got to know him. He invited me here. I understood he was a shirt maker,
Hello.
and I took his shirts to London and sold them.
So that's how you met.
Well, we met in Piccadilly Circus. He was standing with a map in his hand.
And I saw many people passing by, but all these faces looked quite dull and not very smart. So I thought I have to wait for a smart face to stop.
And is this a smart face?
That's not how I remember.
I'm lazy, so I don't look at maps. So it's much easier to ask someone, and of course then you always meet nice
You always meet
people.
nice people, yeah.
I asked Richard, no, he actually told me that he's half Polish. So when he told me he was half Polish, I thought, we have to find about your Polish roots, we have to...
He said to me, "What's your name?" And I said, "I don't know."
Yeah,
Rather
that I
shocked.
thought, what are you talking? You're Polish and you don't know what your name was, so...
Anyway, so on his prompting, he said, "Look, come to Poland, but find out what your
And I
name
meant
is."
it.
Last year, Richard got another early music star, Christopher Hogwood, to come and conduct a concert with the orchestra. So this year, with Emma, audience expectations are running ultra high. For Richard and Pavel, a lot depends on the success of this concert. I just hope Emma doesn't get a tickle in the throat.
It's the old part of the television. Which are they do on the first floor? They still use sealing wax to close the doors. Yes, here we are. You see, they still use sealing wax to show the doors locked.
Buongiorno. Tutto bene? Grazie, buongiorno. Thank you.
Are you decent? Yes. There's your. Thank you very much. Lovely. Dame, oh dear. It's all right there. I don't like seeing it
alongside other names that aren't. You know. I don't like seeing it alongside names with whom I'm appearing on equal terms.
Richard told me that someone in England had referred to you as Dama Emma.
Well, it was
one word.
Well, it was just that somebody put Dame on a boarding pass, and I checked in at British Airways to go to Istanbul, and she said, "But your passport doesn't say Damiana. It says Caroline Emma." I said, "Oh well, the Dame doesn't mean anything really, you know."
Because the concert is so cheap, we're giving away the CDs for free.
Richard shows no sign of nerves at all. He's a brilliant meter and greeter, a consummate worker of the room, and an inimitable glad-hander. So I'm not surprised he's got a full house.
Another Krzysztof.
Yes.
Krzysztof, okej, to jest był gratmatyk.
My wish is that you come back. I miss your smiling faces. So are you going to donate to one of our Hogwarts CDs over here?
You're fantastic. Great.
Hey boys. Big stars, you played fantastically well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I thought so. They all thought so.
Oh, they were marvellous. There was a wonderful moment when he went...
And nothing.
And
This
nothing
is how
happened.
conductor sounds.
Via Sorrento. It was brilliant. Actually, it's quite worrying. Why didn't they do something?
Ever since I've known him, I've always felt Richard has had his roots in music. But now I'm here in Poland, I want him to go further and take me on a journey back to his real roots, his Polish roots.
The family got here in about 1917. They bought the village and a large estate. We'd had a lot of land around this area.
What was the name of the family?
Belitsky, right until the 19th century. But in 1863, my great-grandfather was involved in the revolt. And what happened was Polish noblemen who were exiled to Siberia for a period would have all their property confiscated. They might not have money taken away from them, but they'd lose their property. And so when he came back, he didn't have a home to go to. He ended up in Krakow, where he became a professor of history. I always get excited when we come along here and the Godowa sign ends, and Żyżnów, very exciting. We get butterflies. The first time I came here, it was discovered the house. It was the first time I really came into contact with my Polish reality, because my mother had told me so much about my father's childhood, that I told her about. She told me about the house and sort of even having sort of aristocratic, noble roots, but there was no evidence of this. my mother had brought me up to think of Poland as being my home. She'd told me so many things that she'd learnt from my father, which meant they must have been quite close. She'd seen photographs, she knew about his parents, and she had a remarkable memory for these things, which she told me about because she loved him. She was besotted with him. And then when I came here with Andrzej, and we just drove past the gates and stopped. I said, "Stop!" We reversed, and there was the house. It was so exciting. I almost threw up. My father spent a lot of his childhood. His great-uncle's house. He bought it in 1917 and lived here until the Germans, well, not until the Germans came, until the Russians came, pushed the Germans out, and gave my family 2 hours to leave. They left, went to Warsaw and dispersed.
What did they take with them?
Mainly photographs. Some family records, portable things. Almost everything else had to stay. The house became an orphanage quite soon afterwards, I think.
Well, I mean, what sort of orphans? Polish orphans?
Polish orphans, yeah. I mean, it's a home for children, not necessarily orphans in the way that we would understand, but children who come from broken homes or alcoholism is a huge problem here, and so children have to have somewhere to go to grow up. A lot of the children spend 10, 15 years here, all their childhood. And it's a really nice place to grow up in. I wish I had.
It's a bit of an amazing home to lose, isn't it?
It's an amazing home to leave, and I think it's something that stayed a scar on my family, actually. I think really for the last 60 years.
So you're going to try and get it back?
Well, it's so interesting that they are. I found 2 ways of getting it back. And one of them is because when it was nationalised, they nationalised the house as part of an agricultural estate, which it wasn't. This is a private house with an estate around it, a working estate around it.
Here they all are. Richard, they're all going into your house.
They're all going into my house. There's nothing I can do about it. The new owners. This is the new regime. Rather interestingly, when we came to Magnificat's funeral a year ago, her brother, who is the rightful owner of this house, went into the house for the first time since 1944. I've been in it, my cousin has been in it, but my father's first cousin, Andrzej, had not been in it since he left, all that time ago. Noisy bunch, aren't they?
Far in Poland without coming up against the legacy of the Second World War.
You certainly can't. And a while ago I had some English students in Warsaw from Tiffin School, and one of the girls came up to me and said, you know, it's really strange, you can feel something awful happened here, can't you? And something really did awful happen. But all over Poland. I mean, we're not so far from the Nazi death camps here. Auschwitz is not so very far away. Yeah, it says it's here. The loss of the ethnic mix. There were many Jews here. I mean, there were many, people of all denominations. And that's all gone. And that colour, that spark, that spice, is something that Poland really lacks.
Is there Jewish blood in your family?
My father says there is. That somebody married because he needed some money, but I don't know. I really don't know. It would be pretty surprising if there wasn't. It would be pretty surprising if there wasn't any Italian blood as well, because I mean there were many Italians here in the 15th and 16th and 17th centuries. Tatar blood. The Tatars were here. So yes, I'm sure that if you did my DNA, you'd find that there's a real old mixture, and I'm glad of that.
That's what you think is missing now.
Oh, I think it's very missing, yes. And Poland, I don't want to say it's an anti-Semitic country, because I don't think they're anti-Semitic, they're anti-other. They're afraid of people whose cultures are not the same as their own, because they only have a monoculture.
So how does that work when you're a Brit and you come here?
Well, on one hand, you're sort of regarded as something rather exotic, you know, because the flow tends to be the other way. Poles going to England.
Yeah, no kidding. I think these are just off now, actually.
Just off now to England, do you?
Yeah.
Well, they're travelling light.
Are you going to show me around?
I will, yes. Do you want to see it?
Yeah.
Let's go see the garden, it's beautiful. Where's that dotty dog? You know, this is so typical of Polish sensibilities.
Why?
Well, you have a lovely house and a ruin, and in the middle you put, in a prominent position, a tin shed. No attempt to hide it, no attempt to disguise it. Just sits there, doesn't it? It's a real affront. And the park is so beautiful.
Come and show it to me.
Come on. There's a wonderful scene in the wedding film of my father's cousin Kasia. My father standing somewhere about here, I think. And
Just by one of these columns?
yeah, and his uncle and Kasia leave in a landau and go off around here, around the drive, around to the little chapel.
Richard, what does a house mean to you? When you look at it, does it mean home?
Yes, it does, in many respects, because it's such an odd house, and I'm such an odd person, and I think my family is quite odd. Yes, I think we match. It's not too grand. I mean, there's a comedy about it. It's almost a theatrical set. But I mean, the inside has been completely ruined. So there's no charm behind the facade, I'm afraid. That would all have to be redone. But yeah, it's where a Polish nobleman should live, I think, a house like this.
You look very pained about the loss of it.
I am pained about it, actually.
No, I think it's a good thing that it's an orphanage. I mean,
Yes, it's a good thing it's an orphanage. It's a good thing that these children have a safe and wonderful place to grow up in. I think it's wonderful. I mean, I went to a boarding school, which wasn't so dissimilar from this sort of environment. It wasn't very safe and it wasn't very wonderful, but the children seem remarkably happy. And though my cousin's got 8 children, why shouldn't they have grown up here? I came back here the 1st of November. I was in Poland, and on the 1st of November the Poles go back to where they come from, and they clean their family graves, bring flowers, and it's a very, very important festival. I know I have family in England, but it's this half of me which, and I think when we go up to the grave you'll see what I mean. Because on my great-grandfather's grave they describe what he was. He was a musician. He was a literary man. He was a teacher. He was also a hero of the Republic. I think I am in my own way, but I don't think they're going to give me a medal for it. They gave him a medal for it. But it was this sense of finding continuity in who I am. The fact that, you know, I'm making an orchestra in Warsaw. Something I've never done in England. Finding that this man, so involved with music was a fundamental. I came down alone. I was the only member of my family here. And when I came to the grave of my great-grandfather, I must say the people around must have thought I was mad, because whilst they were mourning, I was laughing. I sat on the tombstone and I laughed and laughed and laughed with an inner joy that I think is something that I try to recapture every time I come here, and I don't. But it was this sense of belonging, finding where I belong, finding home. My father met my mother when they were both working at Enton Hall, the place to be seen at in the 1950s. It was the first of the sort of health farms like Champneys and so on. My mother and my father met there when they were both masseurs.
So where were you brought up, Richard?
I was brought up in Brighton. My mother was working in London as a masseuse with a private practice. She had quite interesting clients, people like Errol Flynn, Vivian Lee, lots of business types. It's how she met my stepfather, who was a patient. My grandmother and I lived quite happily together, quite often dreading the weekends when my mother would come home. But I mean, the problem was she didn't really know how to cope with a child. But what did worry me was why I didn't have a father. That really worried me.
When did you first notice you didn't have a father?
I think when I discovered other people had fathers, which was when I went to kindergarten when I was 2 and a half. I certainly remember, I think I must have been 3 or 4 at the most, asking my mother where my father was, and she said that he didn't want me. And when I met him, of course, he said that my mother wouldn't let me see him. But I think what happened was their breakup was so acrimonious. My grandmother, my mother's mother, had taken my father to court in order to get payments from him. And of course this meant that his wife had known everything about the relationship, that it had been very unpleasant for everybody.
So, after your mother and father's affair went sour, did she remain a single mum?
My mother married. My mother married in Chester Cathedral in, I think it was August 1962. I was there.
And who did she marry?
She married the grandson of William Dennis. He invented the King Edward potato. So Uncle Bob, who I called him Uncle Bob until they got married, and I called him Dad, was an extremely rich man.
Because he was the grandson.
Because he was the grandson of the man who owned half of Lincolnshire. I mean, to begin with, we lived incredibly grandly, 3 homes, always in hotels. But money became more and more and more of an issue because my stepfather had very expensive hobbies: hunting, shooting, and motor car racing. And he had his own racing team. I used to go as a boy in the 1960s to Silverstone and Goodwood and all these places to watch his team, his cars, racing. He owned some of the best cars ever made, an Aston Martin DBR2, which he used to come and get me from school in. One of, I think, 4 cars of the type made.
But that sounds like a little boy's dream.
Well, it was a little boy's dream, except, no, it was fantastic. You know, Jensens and Albises and all sorts of things. But, you know, the price that was paid was awful because the cars were the centre of his life, and he was alcoholic. He, already by the 1950s, was a little bit short of money. And what he needed was to have a child in order to get the capital of a trust that his father had set up in 1923. He married my mother with the high expectation of having children. And I'm sure that she probably wanted children too. But within 6 months of the marrying, she had to have a hysterectomy. And so, rather than getting an advantage, a financial advantage from having a wife, my stepfather had a double burden, a wife and a child, who were not of very much use to him.
So what happened to him?
Well, just before he died, he had in a lock-up garage some car parts. And amongst those car parts was the chassis of an Aston Martin DB3 that he owned. And a pop singer paid £198,000 for it in auction. The nice thing was that, really having lived on housing benefit and a handout from his cousin for 10 or so years, and of course having left my mother on housing benefit as well, he died with a little bit of dignity, actually, because 2 months or 2 or 3 months after getting this money from the chassis, he had a heart attack and died. Then, strangely, I sort of felt I had more right to try and discover my Polish roots.
So, your mother and your father couldn't marry because he was already married?
Yep.
And he already had family?
Yes.
And the family was in England?
Family was in England, yeah. I went through the London telephone book when I was 14, when I was at school all night, because it was really something terribly strong in me. I had to meet my father. I used to send him letters from time to time. He'd never reply, but after meeting Andrzej and being encouraged to write one more time, I wrote and said, you know, you must be old if you're at all. You must want to put things right with your God. And sure enough, 3 days later the phone goes, and he says, you know, what do you want? Who are you? I have no money. And I said, well, that's not what, it's not money I want. I want to meet you. He said, why? I'm very old. I've been very ill. Why do you want to do that? I said, well, isn't it normal to want to meet your father? And he said, yes, I suppose it is. And then he'd ring me up every day, and we'd have quite long conversations. At a certain point he said, you know, I've talked this over with my doctor, and he's very glad. I said, you know, why? really? Good. Oh, so glad. You know, dreading the thought that it might be, you might want to come and move in with me or something awful. And he said, yes, you might be very ill. My heart is very weak. Which, none of it was true, of course. I mean, his heart's not at all weak. I mean, he's still working as a masseur at the age of 84. And eventually he came round to see me. He immediately said, well, you don't look anything like me. But then he said, well, Mark doesn't look like me anyway. That's my half-brother. And he came and sat down, and he talked at me. He talked at me, actually. Highly energised, but I was kept at a great distance. And he stayed for about 2 hours. We had tea. It was a very nice time, actually. But what began to dawn on me was the physical aspect of him, as much as the mental. I would sometimes look in a mirror and catch my face, or rather his face in my face, which I think was very disturbing. And I think, you know, if you grow up with your own parents, you don't really see that, do you? Because you know what your parents look like, you know what your face is. It's not an issue. But when suddenly in middle age you meet a parent, my goodness, that's the bit that was missing.
What did your mother think? Did they meet up again?
No.
Did he ask to meet her?
No.
Did she ask to meet him?
No. But it would have been nice. I think it's a little bit too late now, because they're quite similar people. They even have the same sort of language.
Would you have liked them to meet?
Yes, I would. I think I would have very much liked them to meet, and to try to have found some sort of unity and forgiveness, perhaps. Yeah, I would really like that.
How did your mother feel about you meeting up with your father?
I think she was very moved and rather grateful to me, because I think it was something that had worried her enormously. I think it was something that she felt incapable of doing anything about. But after I met him, we went to Enton Hall, we went to the places that she had been with him, and I had a very keen sense that this was the past, a circle from the past closing.
And how long was it before you came to Poland?
2 years. It was quite a quick decision, actually. You know, I have to say that having met him, I'm glad I met him. I liked him. He chose to stop the relationship, but it wasn't a fundamental relationship for me, in the sense that I don't think it was one I would want to continue or put a great deal of effort into. But what he gave me was a doorway into Poland. I'm just going to stop to see if we're going the right way. Oh, fuck! You don't go to Grodziec Mazowiecki. Fucking hell, they're so stupid, these bloody Poles. We've been through it.
Oh, we have to turn round and go back.
Turn around again, yeah. God!
I'm hungry.
I'm hungry too. I think I'll have a walk before lunch.
What?
I can see why Richard has decided to stay in Poland, because in a funny sort of way, coming to terms with his family history has allowed him to grow his own sort of family. Because that's how I see the orchestra and the choir. They've become his family, his musical family. So along with his roots, I think he's found his real purpose in life here, growing and encouraging music and music making. I wonder who he'll invite next year. Well, Emma battled the cold.
She's a trooper.
Listen to that, they love her. Are you pleased?
Delighted. And relieved. Very. See you again.
See you. Thank you.
To się normalnie robi. To się normalnie robi, kulturalnie ludzie tak robią.
Really lovely. Really lovely.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm silent, so I can't understand it actually. I just have to sign. Pavel, what's the stamp? They love stamps in Poland.
I was just only dreaming about the chocolate. Just not music, chocolate. Give me chocolate.
Stamp here, yes?
I'm just hungry. I'm starving.
Get a chocolate, sir.
I'm starving.
Dzieciątko piaskuje i Józef święty ona pielęgnuje. Chrystus się rodzi, nas oswobodzi, anieli grają, króle witają, pasterze śpiewają, wylętają.